Thank you. amazing voice, consoling voice, convincing voice, pervading voice, and immortal voice, voice, with power and voice, persuasive voice, consoling voice, convincing voice, pervading voice, and immortal voice, voice. If I were a voice, if I were a voice, an immortal voice, I'd sing the Beatles hymn, and remember they shouted, Liberty! Without deserving to be free! I'll make their honor clear! I fly the wings of faith, rebuking wrong on my worldwide way, and making all the earth rejoice! Yes, rejoice! Rejoice!
If I were a boy,
Persuasive voice,
if I were a voice,
consoling voice,
if I were a voice,
convincing voice, voice,
if I were a voice,
pervading voice,
if I were a voice,
an immortal voice, and we are the voice!
Thank you, contestant number 1. Before we proceed po, contestant number 2.
Just 7 minutes.
If I were a voice, by Charles McKay. If I were a voice, I were a voice, a convincing voice, I travel with the wind. And whenever I saw the nation soar by warfare, jealousy, or scorn, or hatred of their kind, I fly on the thunder crash, and into their blinded bosoms flash, and all their evil thoughts aboon. I teach them Christian brotherhood. If I were a voice, a pervading voice, I'd seek the kings of earth. I'd find them alone on their beds at nights. Lessons of priceless worth. I'd fly more swift than the swiftest bird, and tell them things they never heard. Truths which the ages for I repeats, unknown to the statesmen at their feet. If I were a voice, an immortal voice, I'd speak in the people's ear, and whenever they shouted liberty without deserving to be free, I'd make their error clear. I'd fly on the wings of day, rebuking wrong on my worldwide way, and making all the earth rejoice. If I were a voice, an immortal voice.
Thank you so much, contestant number 2. Now let's receive again. Let's welcome contestants number 3.
If I were a voice, like Charles Mackay. If I were a voice, a persuasive voice,
that could travel the wide world through.
I would fly the beams of the morning light and speak to men with a gentle might.
And tell them to be true.
I fly over land. If I were a voice, a pervading voice, I'd seek the kings of earth. I'd find them alone on their beds at night and whisper words.
But you drive them right.
Less of the priceless word. I'd fly more swift than the swiftest bird and tell them things they never heard. Truths which the ages for I repeat. Unknown to the statesmen at their feet. I speak in the people's ear. And whenever they shouted, liberating, without deserving to be free, I make their error clear.
I fly
I fly
on the
wings of day, rebuking wrong on my worldwide way, and making all the earth rejoice. If I
were a voice, an immortal voice.
Thank you. Now let us have
If I were a voice, by Charles Marie.
If I were a voice, a persuasive voice.
If I were a voice, a consoling voice. If I were a voice, a convincing voice. If I were a voice, a pervading voice. If I were a voice, an immortal voice. think twice. If I were a voice, a prevailing voice, I'd seek the means of birth. I'd find them alone in the beds at night and whisper words that you guide and cry. Lessons of priceless worth. I'd fly more swift than the swiftest bird and tell them things they never heard. Shoot through the ages for higher feet, unknown to the statesmen at their feet. If I were a voice, an immortal voice, I'd speak in the people's ear, and with liberty shouted, liberty! We all deserving to be free!
I make their error clear.
I fly, on the wings of day, rebuking wrong on my worldwide way, and making all the earth rejoice! If I were a voice, an immortal voice!
Thank you. And now keeping our energy and emotions alive are our
pervading voice. I'd seek the kings of earth. I'd find them alone in beds at night, and whisper words that should guide them right.
Essence of priceless word. I fly more swift than the swiftest bird, and tell them things they never heard. Runs with the ages for I repeat, I know who the statesmen at their feet. If I were a voice, an immortal voice, I'd speak in the people's ear, and whenever they shouted, they were here! Without deserving to be free, I made their error appear. I fly on the wings of faith, rebuking wrong on my worldwide way, and making all the earth rejoice. If I were a voice, an immortal voice.
Thank you so much. The energy doesn't stop here because we still have our last.
If I were a voice, a persuasive voice, that could trouble the wide world too,
I would guard the beast of the morning light, and speak to men with a gentle might.
and tell them to be true. I fly, o'er the land and sea, wherever human heart might be. Tell me a tale, or sing a song, in praise of the right, and in vain of the wrong. If I were a voice, a soaring voice, I'd fly the wings of air. The vocals are until I see, and come and truthful words I speak, to save them from despair. I fly, o'er the crowded town, and drop like a happy sunlight down,
Into the hearts of suffering men.
and teach them to rejoice again.
If I were a voice, a convincing voice,
I travel with the wind, and whenever I saw the nation's star, by warfare, jealousy, or storm,
if I were a voice, a convincing voice,
I travel with the wind, and whenever I saw the nation's star, by warfare, jealousy, or storm,
or hatred of their kind,
I fly, while the thunder crash, and into their blinded bosom flash, and all their evil thoughts subdued, I teach them Christian brotherhood.
if I were a voice, a pervading voice, I'd see the kings.
On earth,
I find them alone on their beds at night,
and whisper words that shine like a bright. Lessons of priceless worth. I fly wings of flame. Rebuking round on my worldwide reign, and making all the earth rejoice. If I were a voice,